Hey, welcome everyone to the episode on Wicked. It's December now, but I guess we're chatting on Wicked Wednesday, shall we say? Well, thank
We
you.
should have worn pink.
I'm wearing all blue today. I just
Oh.
I've got my Mercedes F1 sweatshirt on to try to keep warm in this frigid climate I'm inhabiting on the Thoughtcast appropriately. The Thoughtcast conversations about animation to not slur too much on this big episode about a new musical, Wicked. Like to talk about musical, Disney adjacent, and all things. Well, you guys are all princesses and performers, and yeah, this is exciting, something we've been anticipating for a little bit. And November was Wicked month, of course, but we're getting in our little chat on Wicked now, and we'll just have a raucous time chatting about some Oz. And so yeah, podcast conversations about animation. I'm Philip Elke. I'm here in northern Minnesota, joined also by Laura Akal in Minnesota
Hello, hi.
and Jody Violet in Georgia, and then Bridget. I'll just uh, I usually only use your guys' first names, but I'm
Well, it's Maturovsky, and it doesn't look the way it's spelled, so it's a mouthful.
Macherovsky. I mean, I can get used to that certainly, but I'm just not used to saying it thus far. Well, thank you. Yeah, Jody and Bridget, y'all are down south in Georgia.
Well,
I
it's
didn't
like
mean.
we're up north. It's freezing. I
Okay,
hate
it's
it.
cold for you right now. That makes sense. Yeah, it's holiday season. Well, how appropriate we should be talking about blockbuster film. And I think I'll kick it off in kind of the order I introduced you folks. And I know, Laura, you saw this movie a little bit early, got into an early screening. Tell us what that experience was like, and have you seen it since?
Yeah, I wanted to go again. I've been waiting for my second viewing. Hasn't yet happened, but I was able to go in on November, I believe it was 18th. It was like Amazon Prime was doing some sort of early screening thing, and I was surprised at like most of the theaters in my area were completely sold out. I had to go a little further out, but still not too far out. And it was IMAX, so it was really big screen and everything, but like not a ton of people at that screening. I was very surprised, which was nice. It was nice that it was quiet. Nobody sang. So that was also nice too. Like it was, but I mean, everybody was like, clapping when it meant to, yeah, at the end, like, so like it just was really like, it was really special. Like I feel like I've been waiting for this movie what feels like 2 decades now. Like this, the talk of a Wicked movie has been going on ever since like this show has been like even when it began on Broadway, like I think Universal snatched up the rights to it really quickly. And every 5 years or so, there was like an article coming out about like Wicked movie in development, possible ideas of directors, cast, etc. I remember there was like a April Fool's article that came out in like 2012 saying Harry Styles was going to be Fiero, which when I think about it, you know what, nowadays probably could work, but back then he was like way too young for it and we were all like, what's going on? But then it kept going on. I think 2019 there was like a thing where they put out on Twitter, they're like Wicked movie coming out 2020 or something like that. And no noise for a while. And then John M. Chu gets announced, and then all the cast, and then it really starts picking up. So like I didn't believe it was going to happen until I was going to be sitting in the theaters and seeing it. Just because I feel like we've been duped so many times before. Will there be a Wicked movie? Will there not be a Wicked movie? I love the musical. I've seen it 3 times. like it's like a core part of everything that I am, I guess. I have a lot of the merch around me right now. So I just was like, I will believe it when I see it. And oh, it like I still am like processing it because it just was so like a relief that it exists and it was exactly what I wanted to be and so much more, you know? So yeah, that's just getting into it. That's initial thoughts there.
Fun. It's a monumentous occasion. I don't know if that was that a real word. They use a lot of
Could be an Aussian word, but yes.
Aussie,
Yeah, they
yeah,
they move. They have little funky words.
spoonerisms, malapropisms, whatever you want to call it. Like there's vocab terms for these kinds of things. But it's a fun little quirk, I guess. I guess I don't know how much of it dates back to the original books by L. Frank Baum, but we'll get into it. I might have mentioned probably going to be more of a passenger on this one, which I'm very happy to just let y'all kind of sort your thoughts more so because I haven't lived with Wicked nearly as much as probably you all who've I'm sure seen the musical. I had never seen the musical, but yeah, in the theaters, this is being marketed, both as Wicked Part One or just Wicked, like on IMDb, it just says Wicked. So I don't know. I guess that's fair since it's the first film, but it's really only the first half. So we'll see. As the second one, I don't know. They should go into like the backstory or something, maybe a little bit in the second one. That'd be interesting. What was the wizard up to during kind of the prologue events that we briefly glimpsed in this film? But I don't know. Yeah, that'd be like the Godfather Part Two sort of route. The early Vito life and times. And all, how old is the Wizard of Oz? Does he have access to like real magic that allows him to like achieve this godlike status and prolong his life? I don't know. But yeah, Jody, what did you think of Wicked?
Yeah, so I have a similar background. I loved the musical almost as soon as it came out. Luckily, my mom really instilled an appreciation for theater into me at a young age. Um, I think it came out like 2003, so I would have probably been like a sixth grader. I'm not totally sure, but like, that middle school time where you're really impressionable and you really have a tender heart and you're learning a lot of things about the world. So this one made a huge impact on my personality in a major, major way. Um, 'cause the hormones are flowing at that age and you're discovering yourself and like following the journey of the characters. Uh, and I was the same way. I always hoped for a movie. We grew up in a small town where, I mean, you didn't get a chance to see this even when it was like a Broadway tour because the close. Um, but I did see it once, and I have seen it since in Broadway, but never with like the original cast or anything like that. And I was super, super excited for this movie. I didn't want to watch any spoilers with it. I wanted to go in kind of like a blank slate because I was almost like very nervous since it is a part of my history. I wanted it to like be what I wanted it to be. And like, spoiler alert, like it absolutely was. I struggle to critique it actually because there are so many things that were done right. A blockbuster, I think, is like an understatement for this movie. Everyone that I've talked to personally really loves it, and that's exciting. I also did receive the book at the wrong age. I
Ah,
think I read it when I was like 14. It's very dark, it's very political. It's not a light, not that the musical is light, but it digs really deep into some themes that are hard to swallow at that age. But I guess it gave me a well-rounded appreciation for, some of the things they were aiming for. But I love it. And I love anything that reimagines a story from a different perspective. Disney has done this with like Cinderella, Stepsisters, and Into the Woods does it by letting you kind of see the characters' stories before and after the fairy tale. And I really like that you're kind of seeing a spin of the Wicked Witch or the Wizard of Oz. And it kind of makes you look at all stories and say, is there more to it than what, we see with these quote unquote villains? So 10 out of 10.
right. Yes. As far as the objectivity is concerned, I'm not, frankly. And I enjoyed my time with this film, a fairly substantial time. But yeah, The 2 hour, 40-minute runtime might seem a little bit intimidating, but clearly audiences have come out in droves regardless. And sometimes you want a little bit of kind of expansive mythology to your experience at the cinema. Bridget, what do you think?
So, I too, big theater nerd. I was introduced to this in high school through theater. Um, it was our graduation song, like it was Laura's.
Yeah.
They, in my small country town, we managed to, strong arm, so we didn't have to sing another Sarah McLachlan song. So that's what we did. And so, like, I feel like I actually have never got to see it like on stage. I've only seen it like through recordings of a stage. So I'm like, oh, it's like,
Oh, wow.
it was, pirated, which is probably
Yep.
bad, but I was broke. So
Like on slime tutorials, yes.
yeah, I was like, it's fine. You can LimeWire it. It's fine. But yeah, so like I had seen it, but of course I haven't watched it in a million years. And so I kind of went in like not blank slate because I also have the book, which maybe don't read. I don't know. Maybe at this age I can better like understand it. As a teenager, I was like, I don't understand any of these themes because I didn't know anything about politics. I didn't know anything about life. But going into the movie, when I heard who they casted, I was like, sus. Like, I knew that Ariana Grande was an actress. She had been an actress. I'd watched her growing up. And then I knew she could sing, but I was like, I don't know. Those are big shoes to fill. But honestly, like watching it, I was like, that was the role for her. Perfect. Perfect casting. And I do think that she took some stuff, obviously from Kristen Chenoweth's like version of it, but also made it her own, which I loved. I was like, wow, I love her. So I was very surprised by that. I think I warmed up to it like as we got closer, but I was like in the beginning, I was like, weird. And then obviously I didn't know about Cynthia at all. And so I like looked into her and I was like, well, she sings amazing. I'm not concerned. She's on Broadway, not concerned at all. And like honestly, I didn't care about anyone else. I don't know. I guess like Jeff Goldblum didn't know he was going to be in it. Like I was like, you know what? All just good surprises, I guess. But yeah, like I went in and of course, like I took my 11-year-old who loves Wicked songs because she has had to endure all of them her whole life. And so she like I told her how long the runtime was and she was like, oh no, like that's gonna be so long. Like she was excited, but not about that. But like once you got your butt in the seat, it like flew by. I was like, you like start to have to pee, and I was like, I'm not getting up. I will pee on myself before I get out of this chair. And then of course, like my husband didn't know anything about Wicked. He knew the songs, but he didn't know anything. And so he was just like, I don't know when the end of this movie is. But like, of course, once we get to Defying Gravity, I was like, this is the end. But I mean, he didn't really even have any critiques either. So like, I would say like 10 out of 10, like 12 out of 10, honestly. It was just so good. They did add some stuff from the books, like things that were not necessarily in the musical, which I thought was a nice touch because it kind of like explains things a bit more, gives you a little more depth that I think that you need in a movie, especially with audiences, because there's going to be people who have not, they don't know anything about it. They're just like, oh, I heard this is like the Wizard of Oz people, and they go and see it. So I'm like, I feel like you really need that if you don't know anything about the Broadway like stage performance of it. So yeah,
There's
it was
a
just really good.
yeah. Well, I mean, potentially really like dark and serious animal apartheid plot that I mean, this movie doesn't really get into a whole lot. I'm very curious what
Not
because I mean that could paint like in the original, famous uh Judy Garland film, Wizard of Oz, everything's kind of light and cheery when it comes to sure the Oz is kind of this he's a bit of a fraudster, but like he's not menacing really. But like this version of the Oz world, I guess it's sort of like a almost like a Maleficent take potentially, where it's just a totally 180-degree reversal on the morality of the villain, where this wicked witch is totally justified as a protagonist, whereas the 39 film, she's just a blanket villain. like how Maleficent's a blanket villain and the original Sleeping Beauty, but a solid protagonist in the Angelina Jolie films. And so like yeah, it is interesting how there can be maybe these mirror image adaptations and maybe that is kind of a reflection of history being written by the victors as well. I don't know. It's a lot to grapple with if you think too deeply about it, but I don't necessarily want it spoiled too heavily where it's going to go. But hopefully it addresses some of these things more substantially because I thought the political intrigue subplot felt a little bit hollow, and I wasn't really looking for Glinda or funny how that her name change is kind of like a plot detail in this, perhaps derived from well, it's probably in the book, but you would think it's maybe derived from the way some of the lyrics are composed too, so that you could add a few more syllables while singing certain stanzas. But yeah, the political stuff, you know, should we come away from these films thinking Jeff Goldblum is a total scumbag, that the guy in the original Wizard of Oz is the same, or is this just a kind of a totally separate story? I mean, there's the awkward kind of intro of starting from the moment, I guess, parlaying directly from the 1939 film's events of the witch being melted. But then, it kind of zooms over Oz and you do see like Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Lion approaching Emerald City as if these are events earlier in the film. So like the timeline of this prologue sequence is really irrelevant. It's just kind of showing these characters as familiar iconography from the Oz world, apparently. It was I kind of got what they were doing just because they want to introduce us to this familiar environment and kind of play on some of the iconography with like the titles being badass, like opening logos of the vintage looking.
Oh, yeah.
That was just super epic. I love a variant logo sequence, the Universal logo. But then, yeah, just I don't know, kind of clumsy how they included clearly, images from the old, the classic film, that did not really sync with, how the plot was being,
I will
Yeah.
say,
unraveled.
I will
I
say
think
on that point, or go ahead, yeah.
Well, I think like kind of like the concerns or whatever the skepticism you're sort of raising. I mean, I think having this movie be in two parts when obviously on Broadway you get to view it all at once as one story. I think like when the second part comes out, a lot of those like gaps will feel fulfilled. And I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people were worried about. I remember when I heard it was going to be a two-part movie, I was really nervous. I thought maybe they'd lose momentum or they'd drag out things that they didn't need to drag out or they'd add in too much. But I will say, yeah, that is the one I think downside of not being able to have these movies come out boom, boom. But luckily, the sequel does come out the next holiday season, which I think is awesome because I do think like viewers who aren't like quote unquote mega fans or haven't listened to the soundtrack 852 times, it's not such a long gap that you stop caring about your questions, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. But can assure you that like I think the second movie will sort of flush out all of that.
Yeah, I mean, and last note, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. But I've listened through the soundtrack, but I haven't necessarily listened super closely. So I I have a lot that has yet to be kind of really spoiled or fleshed out for me. But yeah, maybe I'm looking at this Michelle Yeoh's character, and I don't know. Every time they said her name during the film, it sounded kind of muddled. But it's Madame Morrible, spelled like horrible, but with an M. So that's kind of, I don't know, maybe a bit of a clue. She seemed to have sort of a sudden turn, heel turn in this film. which I thought was effective and kind of like surprising, a welcome twist.
But
But
yeah, because you
maybe
think she's gonna
she's
be like a champion, and then
is she,
she's not.
Yeah. She sees the power in Elphaba, and nobody else has seen this in her. She's grown up her entire life berated for the way she looks, the way she is, and then finally somebody sees something in her and that's unique, but we don't see it as it goes on. She's kind of using it in her own interest and not in Elphaba's best interests. But yeah, so many different themes like that, and it's like I was gonna say earlier, like with the MGM original Wizard of Oz stuff. So MGM like owns a lot of that iconography, like the red ruby slippers. You
yeah.
can't use the red ruby slippers in most because I mean in the original Oz books they're silver slippers. So Wicked as an entity has come up with very creative ways around that in that so like if you notice when Nessa gets her slippers, the box is like ruby, but then the shoe itself is silver. So it's kind of indicating the ruby slipper without having a ruby slipper. And same with showing the backs of the Oz characters and not like the fronts of like they had to be kind of tricky about like what they could use from MGM. And the stage show is also similar in that way and has various references, very kind of subtle, and you'll see them kind of throughout. You'll see more in part two, but I won't spoil that when you get there. But yeah, it's really interesting to look at it from that way too, of just seeing like how all of these worlds connects because you've got the original Oz like world by L. Frank Baum, and if for those of you that don't know, L. Frank Baum translates to, or not translates to, Elphaba comes from L. Frank Baum, and so you have that Oz world, and then you have the Wicked Oz world, and like they're kind of the same, but also there's like some differences too. Like it's so like there's a lot of it's kind of mind melting sometimes. Like I've just been kind of like delving into kind of the maps and the lores and the wikis and seeing like what links to what and how this film kind of also ties into all of that too. But yeah, not to get all lore about it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the book has this expansive mythology and complex, almost like Game of Thrones as political intrigue, then that'll be interesting to explore. But so far, it's just kind of like a lazy sort of animal racism subplot that's been explored in this first film because it's not really the focus. But I don't know, are there, you know, maybe some faulty justifications behind why animals are being repressed? Is there some weird like Zootopia sort of? As I was like, oh, this is like the plot of Zootopia. Something making these animals go feral or or revert to their wild state. Also reminds me of like Chronicles of Narnia, where originally the animals in Narnia could talk, but then as humans gain more and more influence, a lot of them gradually lose their human sentience. So yeah, kind of interesting things that I'm hoping get kind of explained a bit more and not treated because you can really just treat these things in really broad strokes, like, oh, racism bad, and oh, doesn't this remind you of the Holocaust or like apartheid in South Africa, or X current day political issue. Oh, the border, is relevant. But yeah, I'm hoping that if the book is as comprehensive as you're saying, which I believe you. If you read it when you were 14 and it was
Yeah.
even kind of intense for that, I feel
Yeah,
like I
it's
was
a whole
reading some.
series too. Like, yeah, there's
Yeah,
at least four, I believe, and a new one coming out in March that's just called Elfie. That's a prequel, and I have it on
Oh,
pre-order. Yeah, yeah, that's a new one that's coming out. But yeah, it's a whole series. I believe it's Wicked, Son of a Witch, Lion Among Men, and Out of Oz, I believe is the last one, and then Elfie coming soon. Yeah.
yeah. And I wonder how much they will dive into it because there are so many
Mhm.
different themes in this. I mean, prejudice, identity, misunderstood characters, all those things. I really felt like the emphasized theme, if I had to pick one, the one that like resonated with me was just like the power of female friendship, like really came forward with me through this movie. I watched interviews prior with
Yeah.
Cynthia and Ariana, and just their pairing and their respect and like love for one another like really shines through, and it came through in so many moments in the film itself. So I felt like that one was super strong. But yeah, I'm guessing they will.
Well, the original source material heavily serves as a commentary on class as well, material. Well, the term Oz, it's short for ounce, referring to like ounces of gold or sil precious metals. It was originally the silver slippers. MGM changed it to ruby slippers to show off the Technicolor technology. Contrasted against the yellow brick road, or the street of gold, basically. And then Emerald City, another jewel reference. So yeah, it's like the opulent wealth of Oz is certainly demonstrated, and nice that both our main protagonists in this film come from families of wealth as well, kind of auspiciously, and like you have a hard time relating to Glinda because she is just so ostentatious about her status, and coming into Shiz, feeling so entitled and thinking, oh, I have a suite, the private suite reserved, whereas all the other students have to, bunk up with each other. And it's just like, so she's just so flippant about it. It would be disgusting if it weren't so hilarious.
And
Yeah,
so like
I feel like it's
earnest. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't think it's supposed to ever come off as like her being self-centered. I think she's
Mm.
truly just like in a world of her own, which I
Yeah.
Exactly.
mean, that is
Yeah.
self-centeredness, but she did a great job not making it be such a turn off, I think, for viewers
Yeah.
with adding in that humor. And
Mhm.
I really liked, I mean, because taking the book and turning into the show, they really did focus on this female friendship, and they could have just reduced it to like Elphaba and Glinda having like a simple rivalry over Fiero, but instead like they did make it about shared growth and evolving respect and just the importance of solidarity. And I mean, I just love it. I love it.
Yeah.
The
Well,
I
music is a big
yeah.
help.
well, that's like the thing. Like a lot of people with Glinda, I've seen a lot of people say that
Mm.
she's the villain, and like obviously Elphaba is the protagonist. But like I think the story is too morally gray for that. Like I
And that's
think
the
it's
point, right?
like
Everybody
who's the
has
villain, who's the
wickedness among
hero,
them.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like neither of them. Like, does Glinda use her good looks and her money and her popularity to her advantage? Yes. Does that make her a villain? Not necessarily. And like,
Mhm.
because I mean, she's very much like Mean Girls-esque, even
Mhm.
with the pink Mean Girls. Like that was the vibe I got, especially with her little friends, her little group of mean friends. And
Fanny and Chen
I'm like,
Chen,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. And she's like fake nice. She's like fake nice to Bach, gets him to ask Nessa out to this dance because she doesn't want to like hurt his feelings because she wants him to like her. But like,
And
And
she
she
thinks she's
wants
doing a
to
good
feel good.
thing.
She wants to feel
That's
good.
yes.
Like
yeah, but I
I
like
think
she's
her
a little like
motivation. Oh, sorry.
I know you're good. Like she is a little manipulative, but I don't know that it's necessarily like malicious.
Right.
She's
I
just
think,
like, hey, I don't want to
yeah.
let you down, but like if you ask her, then we all get to go. And it's fine. So it's like she's not the bad guy in that situation, but she's also not the good guy. Which like and I'm
Right.
like, I feel like everyone's morally gray. I don't
Yeah.
think anyone's necessarily good and no one's necessarily bad, other than like, I don't know, Miss Marble's kind of bad. But
Yeah.
but not her. But like I'm like, I feel like people are like, oh, there has to be a protagonist, there has to be an antagonist. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think that we can like there are no people who are just like, oh, everyone's good and everyone's bad. Like it very rarely does that happen in real life. And so I think it makes sense for these two characters. And like of course, like everyone's like, oh, Elphaba's the wicked witch in the story, but that's only because someone is spinning it to be that way.
Right.
In which, like, and I'm just theorizing, like, obviously they're gonna look at Glinda and be like, hey, you were the complete opposite. This is the good one then. This
Mm.
is the good one. This is the one everyone loves. That one's the bad one. We hate her. And so I'm like, it's just too morally gray. And so I don't agree with people who are like, oh, Glinda's a bad guy. And I'm like,
Right.
no,
I think
no.
she's
And
such
also
an
they're like
interesting
teenagers.
character. Yeah. Yeah,
Like
they're like in
teenage girls
college.
are mean. Like,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
have you met teenage girls? Like,
And I think like ultimately they come upon it's kind of hard to verbalize, but like, I mean, Elphaba at one point is very selfish too. Kind of when
Mm.
she sings the song The Wizard and I, her ultimate goal of like going to Shiz and impressing everyone isn't to be this do good, save the animals. It's because she hopes that the wizard will make her beautiful or like
Yeah.
deemed by society as beautiful and take away the green, which would be seen as like a very selfish motivation. So like
Mhm.
Glinda with her like social charms and her popularity and like wanting to use those things to wield power, they both kind of come to the realization, I guess, over time of what true good is. And yeah, like you said, they're morally gray. I don't think either of these are flawless, like a good and a bad guy. And I've seen on TikTok, people are like, oh, if your friend's a Galinda, you need to drop them. Or if you gotta be, stuff like that. I'm like, but like look a little deeper because I mean,
Yeah.
she over time learns to use her privilege for good and demonstrates
Yes.
how people can evolve, change, and well, we'll probably talk about like scenes we
Yeah.
really like, but
I'm
I feel like a moment where she opens up her eyes is when, and it's such a powerful part of the movie, but Elfie comes into the Oz Dust Ballroom and she
I love
is
this.
dressed
Yes.
not cool, and everyone's kind of looking at her. And my theater was like pin drop quiet, so quiet. And I feel like Glinda does have a big moment of growth there where it's like, I guess, conforming isn't more valuable than like being true in this moment and being a true friend. And when they hug and they embrace, I mean, like I'm crying, my mom's crying, everyone's crying, but everyone has a different timeline for figuring out what good is, what true
Yeah.
good is. So,
Which
yeah.
I feel like is like kind of the thesis statement of like this whole film is like everybody has those parts in them, like the wickedness and the goodness. And it's like, do we use this for our own advantage or do we use this on like a grander scale for things bigger than ourselves too? And like, what is inherently is one better than the other? Like, I think these two characters are just so fascinating to me because they both want what each other has. Like, Elphaba, obviously, we know she wants like to be accepted by society. She wants to feel beautiful. But then Glinda has this deep like want to like be powerful, but in a way of like, she wants that sorcery seminar spot. She wants to have powers, but then she has all this like material stuff, but like she actually kind of wants like the more kind of magic-y things. And like we see that Elphaba has this natural talent, this ability that she doesn't really know how to use, and is going to the seminar and things, and is being trained on like how to harness it. And Glinda's like, she kind of has to struggle with like this whole thing of like, is getting what I want, is that everything? And also like, is it okay to like not get that sometimes? And like, so they both kind of come to terms too, because I think for a while with this show, and I think with the book too, sometimes I had a feeling at some point of like, is Elphaba fully on board with the animal thing, or is she sort of using it as like a cause for to her to get to her like main dream, which is the whole like a celebration throughout Oz that's all to do with me and like degreenifying, like that's what she really wants. But I've kind of come around on that and I'm like, I see that like those things have just happened to kind of align, but also like there's an argument to be said there too. But yeah, it's and then the whole thing at the end with, I mean, not to run all the way to the end of the movie, but we'll come back to the beginning. But like with working in tandem, like they kind of end up working in tandem, but not in the way that we think. Like it's anyway, I wrote like an essay on this. If you can't tell, like I just the analysis of like their character dynamic and how it like changes and evolves and how they see things in each other that they want to see in themselves and how they learn from each other and the whole again it's like female friendship and companionship. And in my case I always thought when I first read this book I was like I was team Gelfie. Okay, I'm a Gelfie truther. Like I love the pairing. It's kind of canon in the books ish, you could argue, but it's yeah. So this film really kind of fed that fire for me as well. I was like, okay, okay, but yeah, I'm just dipping my toes into all of that, but yeah.
well, uh, yeah, there's a lot beneath the surface and a lot that's even on display, like because they're very, um, yeah, like ostentatious characters in the way they dress and appear. But Elphaba's, yeah, she's this emo, wears black clothes, Wednesday Addams type, and comes off as like detached and disinterested. But clearly, that's belied by the song "The Wizard and I," which shows she's extremely interested in uh, achieving ambitions, but also kind of confusing because sh the enrollment into Shiz is kind of a spur of the moment thing. Like, why wasn't
She wasn't
she?
there. Yeah.
Yeah, why wasn't she planning that all
I think
along?
her dad, and
Her
I'm
dad
not
hates her.
sure, but I
Yeah.
mean, the dad
Yeah.
seems obviously to really dislike her. Obviously, she looks different, but, and I never know if he knows about the affair his wife had a long time ago
Oh, yeah.
with,
Right.
Well, he
but
also
he,
blames her for
For the
the
death.
other daughter,
Yeah.
the well, no, well, for the death, but also the
Yeah.
sister's
the
Yeah.
milkweed, and yeah, so
disability.
my guess is he was saying, we're going to drop off your sister and
Yeah.
nothing else.
You're
Like,
gonna
this is
stay
not for
home.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Well, and they
mean,
kind of always had her suppress her power too. So it's like
Right.
you
very,
need to suppress it. We're not going to do anything with you because you just need to be hidden. Like, I mean, he didn't even like
Mm,
consider her his kid. Like, I,
right.
based on like
And
the way
at
it
the end of the
seems,
day,
is that
yeah.
he does think that it is his kid, maybe because he was so like, he was so convinced, like, oh, if we just, feed the mother this milkweed, then the next one won't be green. So I don't know if he actually knows or if he
Mm.
just thinks like, she was just green on accident. Yeah, she's basically like an outcast who gets raised by a bear.
I mean,
And so it's like
Yeah.
they never do anything special for
It's
her.
I
very
love
Yeah,
Elsa
it's
Elsa from
Bear.
Elsa.
Frozen.
Yeah.
He wants to put gloves on his daughter, conceal, don't feel, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, those parents
Hmm.
were more loving and nurturing or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it just happened that her powers sort of slipped out. And I didn't realize that Madame Morrible in the musical, it kind of covers for her, but that makes a lot of sense. So that like people at Shiz, they're looking at her different because she's green, not really because they understand how powerful she truly
Hmm.
is. Um, which
Okay. She had no leverage over her dad to attend Shiz, so she assumed she'd just be neglected like she had been her whole life.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because she only gets like she only goes with the sister because the dad demands it. Because she's like, because that's the whole thing. Like Nessa, of course, being a kid in a wheelchair, and I'm sure that she was doted on by her father her whole
Right,
life.
right.
She was like, I like this is my time to be an adult, to be on my own, to be a real person. And then everyone treats her like she's a special needs person. And it's
right.
like, yeah, she is, but like treat her like a normal person. And I think that's why the dad's like, no, you have to because I said so. And you're basically like my slave because you're green. And then like the same thing happens with the school though.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, I'm gonna take her, I'm gonna do this for her. And that's when like, everything happens. And
Hmm.
so, but then the thing
Yeah.
that kills me, I don't like Nessa. The vibes are off. I don't like her. Like I mean, I know some things, but like I'm like just in this movie, I was like, I don't like her.
Wait,
Like she
Bridget,
was
have you not
just
listened to the soundtrack?
Oh,
oh
there's a
no
song
no
I was gonna
no
say.
no
Oh,
I
okay.
I know, but I'm just
Okay.
like just from this movie, no
Hmm.
spoilers anywhere else. Just from this movie, I was
Right.
like, I
Hmm.
don't love her. Like I get not good vibes from her. I don't
And
like
that's
her.
great directing, and that is great
Yes.
acting because
Great
I feel like
acting
they
on
Yeah.
did
Nurse's
things
part.
very
Yeah.
subtly. And I know we talked a little bit about the director, but like
Hmm.
he did In the Heights. I've been a big fan of
Yeah.
John Chu ever
Hmm.
since the Justin
Crazy
Bieber
Rich
Never Say
Asians as
Never
well.
documentary.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah, he is something else. And his ability to like make this movie so intimate, whether it's little moments of Nessa's like offness or,
yeah.
Glinda's moments with Bach where like, I like you, but I don't like you, but I like you. And making the jealousy, like knowing when to zoom in and get really close, but also like they had these amazing sets and choreography and knowing when to zoom out because that was
Yeah.
another thing I worried about with this movie was the scale going to take away from the closeness, and he did such a great job like
Yeah,
in all these
major,
little
major props. Like it was both subtle and grand, right where it needed to be. And I loved like the immersiveness of it too. Like the practical effects in this film are just blew me away. Like they built like this whole university campus and they had like I don't know if you've seen like the behind the scenes stuff with the library in
Mhm.
Dancing Through Life, but that like tornado windmill thing that they built there, like that's a practical effect and they had people parkouring through it, dancers dancing around it, and they had to hit their marks exactly right. There was one particular dancer who could only do their stunt about 4 times, so they could only film that shot like 4 times before they could potentially get injured. And they got this shot, and it's like, it's so incredible just like how all of these elements work together and just like create like a painting of a scene. Like it's really really, really masterful. Like I just was really charmed by his vision and really just aligned with it a lot.
Speaking of dancing through life,
Mm.
Jonathan Bailey was the
Oh,
surprise of the century for me
yes.
as Fiyero. I did watch Bridgerton, and I know he's been in other things, including
Yes. The
Broadway
last five
things.
years. Yeah.
Oh, the
Hmm.
last 5 years.
love the last
Yes.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah. And
And
Company, I believe. He was really good in Company. Yeah.
because I have found in the past Fiyero was like a very alienating character. Like I didn't
Yeah.
really like how he came off. I really love Aaron Tveit, but when he played him on Broadway, I'd see clips and I was like, ah, I just don't like this guy. But
Hmm.
Jonathan Bailey was able to bring like a softness with his sexiness, if that makes sense. And I was
Well, it's
like,
like charisma.
Hmm.
Like he's smooth. He's
he's
not like
so
Yes.
smooth,
cringy.
and
Just
you
genuinely charming. Like
you
Yes.
charms
can see how
everyone.
everyone fell in love with
Like,
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
everyone loves him.
Uh-huh.
Boys, girls. When I was
So,
like
yeah.
I've seen so much like commentary online and people are like, ah yes, I love a king who is just into everyone. Everyone and
Right.
anyone.
Right.
Whoever's gonna love him, he loves them back. Um well, and that was like I watched like a little clip with John Chu, and he was talking about when they did Popular, which of
Mm.
course, amazing
Ah,
scene. But everything, of course, was live. They did live singing, live performing. And he was saying that they had to basically they didn't want to like dub in like stepping. He wanted everything to be like you are there in the room and it's happening. So they had to like have mics at certain points. So like you hear her walking or you hear
mhm.
her spraying the perfume. But then also like the mics that have her singing and them talking. And so they all sound like it's all cohesive so that you don't get like pulled out of the moment because they started singing. Which I thought was like, I was like, wow, this guy was like masterclass in making me feel like I'm in this room with them. And so it was just like, I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Wizard and I. They were talking about how basically the whole set just had mics everywhere, mics hidden everywhere. And like, it was so good. Like, they were like, yeah, I could just walk around and sing. I didn't have to do anything crazy because there were literally mics hidden everywhere. Everywhere you were, there was a mic. And so I was just like,
Yeah, I
wow,
was
this guy needs to
curious.
direct everything.
Yeah, you might know, but when it comes to live singing in a show, like I didn't even think about the fact that they'd have microphones everywhere, but do they still not edit it post
So it is a
recording
little bit. They also
typically?
did record some stuff in studio as well. So like it's kind of a mix. They have some live stuff and it's also the album is a little sounds a little different than what's on the screen too. I've noticed that as well. Like if you listen to What Is This Feeling, like the dance like movement is not on the album, but I love how it is in the film. Like during the Dear Glinda, you are just too good, like all of that. Like I love hearing like the footsteps and everything. Like it also rhythmically adds a lot to it as well. Really some awesome sound design. Like I love a lot of the arrangements and stuff. But yeah, so it is kind of like a mix. They also tried multiple takes for a lot of the songs because they weren't sure what direction they were going to go into with a lot of them. With Popular, they added that ending like kind of last minute. Like they weren't sure if they were going to do the ending, and then they were like, actually, we're going to do it, and so we're going to shoot it and do it. So it
Oh wait.
adds this like, I'll go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, to tag in here, and
Yes.
what people should know is like the original composer, Stephen Schwartz, he returned to help adapt this musical to the screen. So when you're saying like, oh, they added this part in Popular, like rest assured it's authentic as the
Yes.
composer
Yeah.
is literally
Mhm.
there. So continue.
Yeah, yeah. So he has his blessing. It's all good. But like, yeah, so like some elements of it, and same with like the battle cry with Dying Gravity, they went through multiple iterations. She sang it at the audition straight on, like exactly how it is in the score. And then I think Stephen and John were like, we want to hear your version of it. Like we know that you can do what's written on the paper, what all the other alphabets have done, but like we're giving you permission to like take this and soar with it. So like, and they let her do that. And like, so I think it was a good, like the singing in this movie had a really good mix of like they stuck to what they know like is like vital to the score. I'm very, very particular with the score of the show and especially with Glinda, like that is like one of a handful of roles for like a legit soprano on Broadway. Actually, the only one currently on Broadway. But like Ariana went through like additional training and worked on her legit and like it really paid off. Like it was really, really well done. So like we have that element of it where there's stuff that you're really sticking to the score, and then like the stuff where that it updates or people have done different opt-ups. Cynthia does a lot of different riffs throughout. Ariana does some things too. Jonathan Bailey does some stuff as well. Like everybody kind of has their own unique stamp on the vocal lines, and it isn't fully just kind of doing what was written. And I believe, it's a mix of Steven Schwartz has given them kind of the okay to do that, and also the director. And it's also like them, like, because I watched an interview recently with Ariana where she was like, I was sort of the gatekeeper on this film because she's a big, big Wicked fan. And so there were certain lines that they were going to cut that are like Wicked fans would know over like big lines. Like one of them was "The Wizard will see you now" in One Short Day was going to be "Who rang that bell," which is from the original Wizard of Oz. And Ariana was like, absolutely not. Like we have to have "The Wizard will see you now." Like that's iconic. So they kept that. And then the fun thing about that is that that's Steven Schwartz saying it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like very cool. We'll get to the cameos of it all, but that was like one very neat thing. But yeah, in tying in all of this stuff, just vocally, really, really nice decisions made about the balance of like old and new.
As someone who's only familiar with the soundtrack, some of I think what made that original cast recording with Chenoweth and Idina Menzel so charming. The intonations that they kind of throw in at random moments throughout some of the songs, like in like what is this feeling? For your face, she kind of drops a note, like it's a little off key, just because she's saying it in a sort of really sarcastic way, and like the moment she's trying to rhyme the word popular, but she says, we're gonna make you popular, but the I guess phrase that came before didn't rhyme exactly with popular. It was so she corrects it to lar. I love that little moment. They kind of do it here. It didn't come off as effectively in some of those little moments, but I appreciate um, the notes that they kind of added to this version to make it its own. So I thought Ariana Grande just t completely folded into that, Glinda Kristen Chenoweth archetype. She didn't just nail it; she screwed, glued, and duct taped it. And Cynthia Erivo, I'm glad she, just kind of. I mean, she's brilliant. I've seen her a bunch of things actually. I did
Yeah.
see Bad Times at the El Royale. I've never seen Widows,
Oh.
but I've seen Harriet, and she was the Blue Fairy in Pinocchio.
I saw her in
Which
The Color Purple
Oh,
and
yeah,
I like wept. Like she was so good in that. Like I had like a back of the house seat to The Color Purple where she was playing Celie, and like it was one of those things where I just was like, oh, I'm seeing like a star making performance. She won the Tony for that eventually. Like it just was
yeah,
like I was transfixed like by just her sincerity, her heart, the power in her voice, the acting throughout. Like it's just like that is like a masterful,
yeah,
masterful performer. So like, yeah,
yeah.
incredible. Like I'm like, yeah.
I
I was
wasn't.
just thinking about it. I've seen both her and Ariana live
Yeah.
now that I think about it because I've seen Ariana in concert before. But yeah, Brandon.
Ariana made for an excellent chameleon, I think, which is fitting
Yeah.
for that role.
And
It's
she's
someone
good at
who's
that. If you've seen her in
yeah,
SNL, like her
oh,
impressions, absolutely top notch. Like
yeah.
she did a skit recently about it had to do with like music history and castratis and opera, and she sings like some legit singing in that. And I'm like, oh yeah, she's got chops. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Not only soprano, but also kind of a rare performer of the whistle tone.
Yeah,
Uh,
she's
you
a
know,
whistle tone girl.
Yeah, so perfect, for this role, of course. And then Elphaba is just the star. She's the main character, capital, C, capital or M. But so yeah, you want the star to be unhinged and unbridled with, the way she portrays. So I wouldn't expect any Elphaba in a major film adaptation like this to just be doing like an Idina Menzel impression. As much as I love that performance from Adina, you gotta kind of make it your own if it's going to stand on its own as a performance.
Well, and they let, like, I was reading that they let them have, they let the actors have the creative license to do that. So like when she's
Of
like,
course.
don't make me laugh. Or like when she's like, oh, they were popular. And she goes, right. And she slams the thing down. Like apparently she doesn't even remember doing that. But it's like that would
Right.
be a real
Yeah.
reaction if someone like gets it right, something you were telling them, and you're like, yes, exactly that. And so it's like
Mhm.
to give them the license to make those decisions, make the little changes, but while still being true to like the original content, it just makes it that much more authentic. And because I mean, I saw people complain that her ending in Defying Gravity, they're like, it's not the same. And I was like, you guys,
That's the
you
point.
obviously have never heard
Yeah.
anyone else other than Idina Menzel sing the end of
Right.
Defying Gravity
Oh
because
my
they all
God.
sing it differently.
They
They
all
all
do
sing
it
it
differently.
differently.
I've looked at so many compilations over the years.
Yes.
And same with the show as a whole. Like there's so many videos you can find on YouTube of like various choices that any of these actors have in these roles have made. Like there's a whole video of like different Glindas and doing their different bits during Popular. Like they all do it so differently. Like Megan Hilty has like hilarious bits. Katie Rose Clark, Ali Mozzie is like an insane Glinda, like just off the walls, crazy energy. And then all the Elphibas, yeah, they have their own riffs. Like Shoshana Bean has her like iconic things. Eden Espinosa does her crazy opt-ups and stuff like that. Like I could fall down that rabbit hole forever and just analyze all of the different things that all these different actors do. And it's like it's carrying on that tradition because it's been such a thing in the stage show for years and years and years that nobody is doing like a one-to-one recreation of, the original Broadway cast, but it's still kind of honoring that while making it their own. Like, yeah.
Well, I have a question. We're talking about,
Hmm.
vocal choices with the casting. Does anyone know why Glinda is wearing a pink dress instead of a blue dress in the iconic opening
Yes.
scene of Coming in That
Yes, yes,
Bubble?
yes. They wanted to homage Billy Burke, the original Glinda in like Wizard of Oz, because people are coming into this film are going to have that 1939 association, probably more so than the Broadway film. Or not Broadway musical. Like I mean, as Broadway fans, we know that she has this gorgeous blue bubble dress that's inspired by, I believe it's like a Chanel dress. Like it's really, really gorgeous. It actually
It
looks
reminds me
like
of
there's
Cinderella.
bubbles. Yes, it's so beautiful. She comes down on the bubble and like has these curly ringlets. Like that's like the iconic like Glinda opener look. And they wanted to go with more of this Billy Burke Glinda that when you think of Glinda as like a general like sense of the
Mm.
character, you think of her as like the one in pink that comes down with the crown and she came down in a bubble dog, like, that Glinda. And they also have a lot of butterfly motifs around her because also the Billy Burke Glinda has she has like a choker with the butterfly on it. The dress has like some butterflies on it too. So it's paying homage to that more so.
Well, I feel
Well,
like that just makes sense for her like color aesthetic too for the
Yeah,
majority of the movie. It's
yeah.
like she always wears pink. Why would she be wearing
Pink is
blue?
her thing. Yeah. She will
That's
possibly be
true.
wearing blue in
At
Act
some
Two
point.
from what I've seen. So
That's
yeah.
when maybe she has a little bit of a character development.
Mm,
A lot of people
fascinating.
talking about the color, a lot of people were like, oh, this film, they muted the colors, they like
Oh,
pulled
right.
away from the vibrancy. But I felt like so much color was coming off of the
Yeah, were we
screen.
watching
Oh,
the same
yeah.
movie?
Yeah,
Like
I was
we're
Right,
seeing it
we're
in
but did you see
IMAX.
that?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and I did see it
Like,
on like the big screen, but
uh-huh.
there did you see a lot of people commenting on that, like from the color
Oh,
of
yeah.
Ariana's hair, like the
People were
blonde
saying
that
it
they
was
chose?
desaturated or something like that. And
Mhm.
and I've seen edits. People have been like, I've played with the colors a little bit. I tried to saturate it more. But I was like, I think maybe in the ads it comes off a little bit more like that, but seeing it actually on screen, it felt like there was a lot of color. Like even starting from the very beginning in Munchkin Land, like all of the poppies, the beautiful flowers and everything, like that was so colorful. And I imagine it's partially because a lot of this film takes place in Shiz, and that's a more muted set. Like it's kind of got like the grays and neutral colors. But then once you go to a place like Ozdust or Emerald City, like that's where the color, like as a contrast, really like bursts some more. So I think maybe that's why. And also, this is a grittier take on this story. The original, like 1939 Wizard of Oz film was obviously one of the first films to utilize Technicolor. So those colors are going to be a lot punchier. But this is kind of like, it's like a darker, grittier thing, but also like it's not exactly that. Like it's running in parallel, running kind of different points of the story, exposing different parts of it, kind of from the behind, from the upside down, wherever. But also like, yeah, like we're at the school for a lot of it too. So I imagine it's not going to be like the brightest colors in the school.
Where
Well,
was
that's what
it
you're talking.
primarily filmed? Does
It
anyone,
was filmed in the
sorry.
UK. Yeah, it was filmed in
Okay,
the
Oh, you're
UK.
good.
okay.
Hmm.
Well, I was gonna say with the thing about the Wizard of Oz too is like you were saying with the Technicolor, but also like the first half when they're in Kansas, like
Hmm.
they were basing it off of the Dust Bowl. They were literally coming
Right.
off of like these crazy droughts in the Dust Bowl. So that's why we have like, like muddy sepia toned beginning, and then the
Right.
contrast is all this crazy
And
rainbow
it's a
and stuff.
dream. It's quite literally a
Yeah,
dream in that version. Like Oz is
yeah.
not like she wakes up and she's like, "Oh, you were there." So like it's going to be have this hazy, like super like abnormally, colorful tint to it.
Yeah, you're like in like almost like a Candyland basically.
Yeah.
And but that's like I don't know. And maybe it's because there's nothing to compare it to in this film. Like there's no like dark sepia tone
Mhm.
colors to the bright colors because I'm like the beginning of the movie just when they're showing like the
Oh
kids running
yeah.
through the flowers and all the rainbow and all the flower colors and I was like I haven't heard anyone complain about the color. So that's the first time I've heard that and I was just like, are you serious? Because like I feel like it was so colorful, like popular,
Yeah.
like at the end where it
Oh,
becomes like really,
yes.
really, really pink. Because I was like, am I losing it? And I'm like, no, it's pink. Okay, cool. Oh my yeah, like even when they get to the Emerald City, which I did
Yeah.
like, they
Oh,
intentionally made it where no one wore green until they got to the
yeah.
Emerald City intentionally.
Ah, yes. Yes,
They
yes,
did that on
yes.
purpose because she's the only
Hmm.
green one. She wears black.
Yeah.
They all wear
And
like
that's
blue
the,
and
yeah.
orange.
That's the thing
Huh.
where she's like, she sees that green is everywhere and green is like
Yeah.
the in thing that's like accepted. And she's like, this is where I belong. Although the one thing about that they didn't do in the film, and I was looking forward to seeing, and I wish they would have done it, is giving the glasses to Elphaba and Glinda once they get to Emerald City. Because like the whole point is like, and this goes back to the original books as well too. Like everywhere in the everyone in the Emerald City wears these green glasses so that they see the world in green.
Oh man.
And it also like Elphaba has a line about that I think in the show where she's like, people are looking at me and they're not laughing, like I fit in here, like this is where I meant to be.
Oh,
And
because
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So
oh,
like,
I didn't even think about that from the stage show that
yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
wearing those green glasses. I do know that Ariana Grande wore glasses like that
Yes.
to one of the red
And the
carpets.
yellow
I mean,
dress.
as you
Yeah.
guys know, yes, they did so, I mean, the marketing for this
Oh,
movie
oh my
Oh
God.
yeah.
and the
Like
collaborations with like
That's where
the
the budget
Stanley
was.
Cup and like it was above
craziness.
and beyond for
I
pushing the
was not
movie. Like
expecting
I'm not
it.
even like
Well, like
what the budget
Xfinity.
was. The
Like
budget had
Xfinity was like doing Wicked marketing,
Oh,
like
yes.
yeah.
everything.
Universal now has the characters. Like
Yeah.
it's
Philip, do you have that?
I
You
have I had
like a
I
list of all of the collabs, like because
the
there's
budget?
so many,
uh
so many.
I don't know. Yeah,
So I'm
Wikipedia,
curious how much they spent on this.
Wikipedia might have the, well, it's probably not public, but I'm sure, yeah, there's a
Ooh.
estimated budget of $150 million here. So far, it's well on its way towards half a
Wow.
billion
Yeah.
at this
Wow.
point. But
I'm not
Which is
surprised.
it'll
incredible for a musical film. That's been the first in a long time. I can't think of a time where a
yeah.
musical film was like the blockbuster film that everybody is seeing. Like, I mean, like, yeah, yeah, that's,
I short of like a Disney movie, I'm not sure. Like I was trying to think if there's any like live
yeah,
action musical movies that
And
have
that's
been
kind
no,
of
this
like
big.
like,
unfortunate
I can't think, like,
because
maybe,
like there are
yeah.
so many
Hmm.
movies that I was excited about, they did Into the
Yes.
Woods, they
Hmm.
did oh my gosh. What is the one where they're snapping their fingers at the beginning?
Oh, West Side
What's that?
Story.
They did West
Yeah.
Side Story
Well, there's
recently.
Chicago.
Which was actually pretty good. Like,
None of these were bad,
but they just didn't blow up,
but it
Yeah.
wasn't done to the scale and like I feel
Yes.
like the hope and the love that this one was done. And
I
I'm
feel
not
that.
sure like why that is. I'm very happy because I feel like it's kind of the blueprint for like how musicals can be received by audiences, the money that can be made. Because one critique Broadway gets a lot is like, why can't we see like when they did Hamilton, filmed it and put it on Netflix so we could watch it. People talk about that like with Wicked, like it's not accessible. Broadway isn't accessible to everyone. So like, why can't we? And when they do projects like this, it's like you can bring musicals to the masses, um, and
I
still make a ton of money. Because like it is a
yeah.
business. These people who are making these things, like they want people to fly to New York City and pay $600 a seat. Like that makes sense. But hopefully it does open up some doors for other musicals that might be sitting on the shelf where like they have the rights to make it. Like, I don't know.
I would
And
hope
that's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
that like the original cast has a decent quality recording that they could now maybe feel more comfortable releasing, since there is this more widely publicly available version for the masses, but
It does exist. So they record
okay.
every Broadway show, but the thing is, you can only watch them if you go to New York to the New York Public Libraries, the archives. You have to like get an appointment and literally like you can't record it. You can take notes. They give you like a notepad. It's so like secretive, but yes,
Awesome.
you can watch every Broadway show with the original cast. They film them for archival purposes. It's
Okay.
insane. So like those recordings exist. And same with like they record a lot of shows for like marketing material and stuff. So like they have the footage out there. I've actually seen quite a lot of the footage of the original Broadway cast of Wicked. They released some, I think Carol Shelley, who was the original Madame Morrible, she passed away a few years ago,
Oh,
and they released a few scenes of her kind of in memorial. But it was really good quality too. So I was like,
good.
surely
Is
they
it like
have
full
the whole
stage
show.
filming or is it
Yeah,
up close the way they did in Hamilton?
It's
Pro
it's
shot,
n
I guess.
so it's not multicam. Well, actually, I'm trying to remember if it was good quality, but it
Yeah.
wasn't like from the way back where you can like but like you can see their
Hmm.
faces. Like it's pretty good quality. So like that exists. And also there are plans for more musicals to have like fully like Hamilton-esque like pro shot filming recordings.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a lot of musicals that have fully filmed theirs, but they've not been picked up by studios. I want to say uh one of them was Aladdin. They filmed theirs during COVID, but for some reason it never saw the light of day. I think Waitress has been out for a while, but like it was supposed to go on PBS recently, but then they like retracted it. I don't know why. Like the people are yearning
Hmm.
to see these shows because again, it's so expensive. Like if you look at ticket prices right now for just about anything that's running on Broadway, not just on Broadway, tours as well have become less and less accessible as the years go on. So it's like, and we want them to be more accessible, and we want people to go to the theater more, and also to just expose themselves to musical theater as a concept more. So I think films like this open that idea for people where it's like, oh, musicals aren't just all like the no, like singing and blah 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 without a point. Like there's like a story to it, there's an art to it, and like like people realize that they end up liking musicals more than they thought they did. So I think this is one of those films that's gonna turn a lot of people around who are like, I don't like musicals. I'm like, well, maybe you like this one, but yeah.
I'll just say I tricked a whole group of friends of going to see Into the Woods.
Oh yeah.
Uh because they didn't know it was a musical.
Oh
And
my
it starts and
gosh.
they were like, Bridget, what did you do? And I was like,
Oh, and that's like a sung
nothing.
through. Yeah.
I do
I was
that
like,
with
I'm not telling anyone
Ryan.
anything.
So
Yeah, like if a movie is dubbed like an anime or
Uh,
like a manga type movie, I like do not tell Ryan ahead of time that it's subtitles because he will sit it out. And it's like,
oh,
no,
really?
you give these things the opportunity. And I mean, I don't know if they talked about when casting Ariana Grande. I
Hmm.
know she's this lifelong Wicked fan and blah, 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 blah. But it also, I feel like, piqued a lot of people's interest
Mm,
that are outside of the typical
yes.
Broadway theater realm. So that was another, I think, great choice. I
Yeah.
mean, she was perfect. Her like Philip said, her
Yes.
comedy, her we could go on and on about so great.
hey,
But I do think bringing in someone, and I mean, they I don't know if you guys saw
I'm
Cats
I'm
when
I'm
it was
planning on
like
seeing
Taylor
it
Swift.
soon.
I did not. I
I've
probably should
actually
see it
never
soon.
watched it, but I've seen a lot of
It's the
clips
first
and I was just like,
musical that I ever saw
"Ugh."
as a child, and I loved it. It like opened my eyes to
Yeah.
musical theater when I was 5 years old. I saw the
Well,
tour, and it was like one of those core memory experiences. But like, yeah, I did not see the movie because I just was like, what are they
I'm not gonna
doing?
let this ruin it.
Like,
I'm not gonna let them ruin
I
this for me.
nah, yeah.
Yeah, I was very against it when they did it, and I was like, I'm not watching it.
My only reservation going is the Uncanny Valley because I have a
Hmm.
feeling it'll be kind of
Yeah.
a fun trip. Like it's supposed
Oh
to be
yeah.
very surreal, But I also kind of don't like sometimes just the ugly CGI feeling
Yeah.
too artificial. I don't know, maybe that could be its own effect in itself. But a question for the pod,
Yeah.
there's a big marketing push, obviously, but like any of you try the Starbucks drinks? Because today
Ooh.
I had an iced non-dairy salted caramel cookie matcha. I don't
Oh,
know if that was
that
one of
sounds
the
delicious,
tie-in.
actually.
Yeah.
Is it, and it's green, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah,
It has to
it's
be.
I would have to check to see if that was specifically one of the tie-in beverages. Let's see, featured here. I don't know if they have them on display, the actual like Wicked. I think that
Hmm.
maybe phased out a little bit, the Wicked promotions from their homepage on their app. But it was good. Oh, no, no, no. Here, the specifically titled Wicked tie-in beverages I'm seeing
Hmm.
here are Glinda's Pink Potion. That's like a dragon fruit drink, the dragon pink drink. And
See, that
then
one's probably great.
Mm.
I've
I,
had drinks like
Sounds,
that from
I
there.
feel like
It sounds
Glinda would
amazing.
like that,
I
you
gotta
know?
try it. I'm gonna try it. And then Alphaba's Cold Brew. So
Oh,
that's
Oh
it's
yeah,
got like a
cold
it's
brew.
matcha topping on it, I think. It's cold brew
yeah,
with
it's
green.
peppermint. Yeah, it's
Oh,
peppermint
peppermint.
flavored syrup topped with silky smooth non-dairy matcha cold foam and colorful green candy sprinkles.
Oh, thanks for
It's
ch
I
been
don't like
wild
I don't
seeing,
love matcha, but I would try the pink one.
yeah, yeah.
Anyways, yeah, the first sip was immaculate, I thought, but I was getting a lot of the sweetness from like the foam and the sugar topping that they, and I do this like my ruminations about how to do like mobile order personal cup usage were fulfilled, where now you can
Hmm.
select personal cup on a mobile order, and
Oh.
they like prepare it in a special you open tumbler, that, and they actually kept the components separate when
Hmm.
they mixed it in, the little tumbler that they use, that they then transfer from that to my personal cup, but then they had a separate container for like the cold foam and then topped it with the, so yeah, the barista this morning was very helpful in
I
achieving
wonder
the.
Well, I wonder if they implemented that because I know during COVID they ceased doing that at all. You couldn't use your own cup. So I wonder if
Yeah.
they were like, we're going to find a way around this. So if it happens again, we can
Especially,
still do it.
they're also selling Wicked Cups, so I feel like they would be more
Yeah.
incentivized to do that as well. So, yeah.
Well, and
I
I
mean,
didn't
they,
know that they had
yeah,
them. So I
there's
hadn't heard of that.
they're
Who isn't selling Wicked Cups right now, though? Like
They're
everywhere I
everywhere.
turn, like back
Everywhere.
to these
Every,
collaborations, like they're out of
yeah.
this world.
It's crazy. There was like I saw this one that was like a mystery mac and cheese where the
Scarlett had
packet.
it. Scarlett
You,
had
oh
it.
no way!
Yeah,
Which one did she get?
it was green.
Ah,
She
amazing.
said she was like it did
Green
taste like
mac and
macaroni and
cheese.
cheese, but it was like kind of she said it was a little off. It was great value. It was
Oh yeah,
Walmart's
yeah, yeah.
off-brand. Because
Oh,
I
that's
was in the
amazing.
store, my kids love macaroni cups, and so I was,
Yeah.
walking, and they had them individually, and it was like green or pink, and I was like, great
Mm,
value paired with Wicked.
yeah.
I was perplexed, but yeah, Scarlett had it, and she got the green one, and I
That's
was very
amazing.
tickled. Well, did y'all's theaters have ices specifically for it?
No, mine
Mm-mm.
didn't. But they
Because
did have
ours was out.
they had something. They had some cups and things like that. And I went to where did I go to? I went to the Odyssey Theater in Burnsville, which was so funny because I took pictures there, and one of my friends was like, "Were you like on the set of Wicked? Like this looks very like Aussian." But no, their theming at that particular location was very kind of like mythology inspired, and it looked kind of shiz-like. So I just thought it would be make for nice photos. But like, yeah, some theaters have gone full out with their displays. I mean, as we know, as like princess people, like sometimes, and now those characters are being sort of implemented into the lineup. I've seen people do events where Elphaba and Glinda are at the movie theater greeting guests and stuff. And I'm curious about the staying power of that and like if, like how long that will last. And I would love to see it last some more because I just think there's such a cool opportunity there for in the character world. But yeah.
Hmm.
Oh no, I think they had. I think one of our theaters here had somebody come one of the
Oh,
days because they.
hmm.
I've actually done one when Beauty and the Beast came out. I
Yeah.
did a Belle meet and greet at one of the movie theaters here when it opened, and so
Ah,
and that was
cute.
forever ago. They
Yeah.
bought us the dress because we didn't offer her at
Oh,
the time.
wow. Okay.
It was like yellow. It
Oh,
was
it
not
was
the
the Emma Watson, the
no, no, no. It was like the old
Oh,
school,
okay.
like yellow dress.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. I
okay.
was like, thankfully we don't have that anymore, but it's much prettier now. But yeah, like we did that. But I think that one of our theaters here, they had someone, I think, for Wicked, because they just also had someone for Moana,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the opening of Moana.
That's coming up, yeah.
Oh, but yeah, so
I
they
feel
had
like
ices.
Mm.
I I looked it up because I couldn't remember what it was. They had a passion fruit icy that was pink, and then they had a green one that was apple. But our movie theater, their ices machine wasn't working, so we didn't get it.
I think like theaters need to do that because like yes, this movie was like a blockbuster, filled the seats, holiday style movie, but I mean theaters still are quote unquote like
Mm.
suffering and like having all
Yeah.
these add-ons is like a good opportunity for them. I want to chime in and say when Ryan and I watched it together, we just saw it in a traditional theater, but then he went up to New York for work and he ended up seeing it in a 4D theater
Mhm.
Oh,
where
that
your
sounds so cool.
seat
Yeah.
So he was
well
in it. He was a
He
munchkin.
was defying
Uh,
gravity.
he was quite literally being like shaked and quaked and like water was spitting on his face. And he said like he thinks everyone at one point should go to a 4D movie, but
Okay.
like imagine defying gravity while your seat is quite
I
Crazy.
hope there's wind.
literally
I
Yeah.
hope
like
you're just the hairs flying back the whole
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is.
Bubbles. I hope there's
There
bubbles
is.
at the beginning. Oh my
Oh yeah,
gosh.
like the Shrek ride or the Shrek show.
Yeah.
Maybe 4D could get me back to see this movie because I think I'm one and done. The 2 hour, 40 minute
Mm.
runtime. I don't know. Was there anything after the credits? I was just like,
No,
I've
you're good.
okay.
Uh-uh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Nothing.
didn't stay, but I think I looked it up and I was like, good, because I'd already been
Yeah.
there long
I'm
enough.
just
No,
like
you're good. I stayed all the way through the end and I was
I
like, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
enjoyed my time with it, but afterward I was just like, yeah, I'm good for a while. I'll see the part two when it comes out and
Yeah.
then I'm good. I mean, it moved a little. I don't know. Whatever. Uh, these
Ooh,
aren't
critique
my.
it. What are you gonna
Yeah. Yes,
say?
yes, yes.
I mean, they're just
It's a
scenes
long,
that get
yeah.
extended, and that was the intention, and it
Hmm.
just went on a little bit too long. It wasn't. I mean, th this kind of thing isn't totally my bag, but it would have been, I think, a lot more appealing for me if they had tightened some things up, just the little bits here and there. But I'm not going to complain too much. It was a fun experience, but I admire the choice to just allow the true fans to just sit and immerse themselves in this world. And maybe I'll feel more inclined towards something like that. I don't know. I wasn't in the best mood. I did opt to sit front row, recliner seats. It was very much an IMAX
Oh.
style experience for me. Just the resolution of the picture maybe wasn't as optimized. You can kind of see the individual pixels a little bit, but oh well, it looked good. But I just man, that's a long time. I especially for a movie that wasn't like 10 out of 10 blowing my mind y'all have intimated that it kind of was for you. I mean, Gladiator was kind of the same way. It wasn't a 10
Mhm.
out of 10 experience and it was a little too long. So, I wasn't super excited to go out and uh, have rush out to the theater for another ex marathon session right away. So I did wait until just last night to finally see it, but and it was good. I overall was was expecting a lot and it delivered a lot.
I will say Godfrey
Yeah.
is very, very critical of movies because everything's, remake, sequel, prequel, whatever nowadays, live action shenanigans.
Hmm.
But he actually, like, we walked out of it and he was like, that is the best movie I've probably seen in a hot minute. Um, but he does agree with you that there were some parts that he was like, yeah, that was a bit drawn out. There were some parts that he was like, I don't think that it had to be that long, but
Yeah, I mean
he did like it.
Understand
yeah.
that. I mean, that happened like I was super a Dune
Mm.
person and I heard people say that Dune was too
Oh.
long. So like I hear it, but like for me it it was the ultimate like passion
Oh,
project, and I wouldn't have really cut anything out because there was just so much to see being transported into that world, and I like can't wait to dive back into it
mhm.
again. So it's okay to have
Oh
like
yeah.
different opinions on it, but I am happy that we all got to see
Yeah.
it because I do think it's one that needed to be seen in
Yes.
theaters. Like this is not wait till it's
No.
streaming,
Yeah.
which I can't
Yeah.
wait till
Yeah.
it's
True.
streaming
I don't
because I
know
want to
when
We'll
it's
watch it
watch it
again.
streaming.
500
But
times.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
we've
know.
watched Hamilton probably 500 times, so like I'll watch it. I'll watch it again. I'll spend that time.
Yeah.
What was
Wait.
up with the centrifuge library bookshelf? I
Oh
mean, you
yeah.
don't need the Grimmery to defy gravity, apparently,
Mm.
because those books already
Yeah.
are. I don't know, are they enchanted? It's just
It's
Harry
a
Potter.
magical school. That's
Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
think there's a lot of potential here now that Universal has Wicked, Universal has Epic Universe. I think there's a lot of theme park potential here and
Scratch How to Train Your Dragon. Give me
the
Wicked.
perhaps or scratch Harry Potter, honestly.
or
Like I
Oh
both.
no, I'm a
just
Harry Potter girly.
like
I'll fight you on that one.
that's all right. Yeah, no, no.
If you can't
I
tell.
see it. I see it. Yes. Yeah, but like it's I now the characters are at Universal. You can meet Elphaba and Glinda. They have like a pop-up sort of exhibit. Actually, in Universal Singapore, they have a whole like Oz area with like the citizens of the Emerald City, and they have like tie-in food and stuff. Like it's very, very well done. I don't know how long that one is lasting until I think January or something like that. But yeah, like it's just there's a lot of potential there, and it's like a property that's just like again, I think it's really smart that I was skeptical about like the part one and the part two thing. I was like, this, I mean, but also like you can't, after hearing Defying Gravity, you can't be like, okay, let's keep going. Like that is kind of a
Yeah.
moment where you need to pause for a bit. Like also we could bring back the old school intermissions. I mean, movies back in the day literally had intermissions. Which I think for this, maybe someday I'll do a double feature and see both of them with like an intermission in the middle or something crazy like that. Like I'd be down. Like I'll watch a 5 hour Wicked whatever night or something.
Sign
Yeah,
me
but
up.
but yeah, so I was skeptical of that at first, but this was the first film in a very long time where I was like so transfixed that I did not even like open my snacks until I got home. I like forgot that I got them and I was like, "Oh, I have like a whole chocolate bar." That like I didn't like I just was so like Wicked for me is kind of one of those obsessions that lies dormant, but then when it comes back up, it comes real hard. And that's what I'm finding with this cycle. And I know it's going to come back again next year once we get to that point. But like in the interim, there's going to be a lot of, I've already been like diving into all the interviews with like just the people involved with the film, just analyses of the characters and stuff. I'm rereading the books, which is very interesting because yeah, I was one of those kids I was like reading at 12 being like, oh, this is shocking. But I think it would hold up more, yeah, as an adult. But yeah, it just was really like and also like I'm listening to the music a lot more and seeing just like both the Broadway and this new album as well and just like and then every time I listen or see a video or something I catch something that I didn't see the time before. I'm like, "Oh, that's like an homage to spoiler for part 2 or like, "Oh, that's an homage to this or that or that." And it's like it just very very cool. I really like how they did
But
that.
I think it's one of those movies where like the more you
Yes.
know, the more you see. Like going into the movie, I knew that there was 9 million
Hmm.
tulips
Yeah.
grown for the
Yeah.
tulip
Yeah.
season.
Oh my God, how
And
gorgeous.
that before, yeah, knowing that before seeing it felt like appreciation in me. Like I was like, these aren't just
Mhm.
tulips; these are 9 million. So all we very big. I think it was
Yeah.
Norfolk,
Uh-huh.
England. Um, but stuff like that where you're saying it's one you can take a really deep dive on. And if you don't want to become crazy fanatic about it, like
Yeah.
that's okay
Mhm.
too. If you want to just go to the movie theater and think, okay, I saw this
Yeah.
cool little spin-off of The Wizard of Oz. I didn't cry, but like
They
it
made
was
it
sweet. Like
accessible for
that's all right
all
too.
kind
And
of
I
levels of,
that yes, I
yeah.
was gonna say I think that contributes to the
Hmm.
success because it satisfies the the theater people and the
Right.
dig deepers, but it also appeals to
Yeah.
maybe
Especially,
those who
and we
love
didn't talk
art.
about it. There was a big cameo moment in One Short Day. Like,
Oh,
Right.
hello, we
yes.
got Adina and Kristen. And the thing is, like,
I was
I knew they were
shocked.
going to be in the film in a small capacity, but I thought it was going to be like Jodie Benson in The Little Mermaid, where it was like quick little moment like that.
Here's a
But no,
flower.
not only are they in it, but they're singing and they've added new music for them. Like that's music that was not in the Broadway musical previously that Stephen Schwartz had written just for this moment. And during the Wizamania section, generally what happens in the stage show is they see Wizamania and it's this like little kind of wizard propaganda show is kind of what it is. And they have these like little guys that the hammerheads that do like, it's kind of a jarring moment, but like very fun too. Like people always talk about how traumatized they were by those little guys. But anyway, but yeah, so they changed it a little bit for the film to incorporate these characters called, I believe they're called the Wise Ones, where they're kind of explaining sort of the Ozian lore in a way, and really they really satisfying for the folks that are again in the know about that. But
I felt like
yeah.
that Leonardo DiCaprio meme. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And we're back.
No.
I'm
And we're back. No, I will say I was kind of similar, like with the squealing and like the little cameos. When Bach came out, I was like,
Yeah.
Brian, Ariana Grande.
SpongeBob. Yeah.
Ah,
He was like, he's also SpongeBob. And he's like, shh, shh, shh. Like, because I had told everyone around me, like, don't talk, don't sing, like, do not bug me, like, let me zone in on this movie. And then I had so many little
Yeah.
things to say throughout it.
Well, did you guys know that they based the Munchkins look off of
Yes.
Bach?
yeah.
They were like,
and that was
"Oh, we
like,
think they're gonna be short and red-haired with freckles." And
Yeah.
he was like, "So like me?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah."
Yeah, because they didn't want it. So they didn't want to kind of play into the stereotypes of like little people. Because if you kind of go back to the original film and like how the Munchkins were portrayed there, and in the book, they're like described, I think, as like short, but not like so short that it's like like little people are. But the effect, unfortunately, that film had is just kind of like giving that kind of stereotype on little people for one way or another. So like I think this was their way of trying to kind of rectify that and also just make a kind of unique version of the Munchkins as well. And I think this film also, and we'll see more again in part two, but like with talking about disability and stuff, Wicked is a show that has kind of perpetuated this sort of ableism around it with the role of Nessa Rose. It's really difficult because I mean, there are a lot of wheelchair users that can play that role, but they've just never gotten the opportunity. Until now, we've got Marissa Bodie. She's the first person ever who is actually disabled in a wheelchair playing the role of Nessa Rose. And like the impact of that is actually incredible. And I really hope that in the future with the casting of that role, that follows suit. And also with Elphaba too, I think with her casting, like it's wild to me that there has never been a principal Elphaba on Broadway that's been a Black woman. Like that's when the show is so there's been standbys and understudies and covers, but there's never been like a principal, at least on Broadway. On the West End there has been, but so, yeah, when the show is so about race and politics of that, and not just the politics of that, but just like your own skin and like being othered by the appearance of your skin, and like who better to understand that, so like what I'm hearing in the grapevine through audition world is that the next principal Elphaba is going to be a Black woman, and there will be more in the future. And it just makes sense. I was always perplexed why that wasn't the case. And also, when I was reading the books too, like Fiyero is described as like darker skin, and so like I was always wondering like why that never has happened in the casting world and stuff. So like I don't know, this film in some ways, in some other ways, like I just think with the disability and stuff and everything, like I think they're making some corrections and some strides, that revisiting this material, because again it was like early 2000s and stuff, revisiting in a way that I think will be helpful in future portrayals of the stuff. I've actually already heard that Stephen Schwartz wants to edit the show on Broadway based on the film in some ways. I don't know what that will entail. He really said that he prefers the new ending of Popular. I'm like, oh, is that going to be in the show now? I don't know. But I think things where it's a little less, I mean, yeah, stuff like with Nessa Rose's character, I think that is a change that I would be here for if they implemented that on Broadway. But I had to get on my
Well,
soapbox about that.
I
But
saw a
yeah.
reel that the little girl who plays young Nessa Rose, she
Oh,
had the
my
doll in the
heart.
wheelchair of the actual Nessa Rose,
Oh
and
my
I was like,
gosh.
"Oh, precious!" And I was like, "Good for them."
I cried when I saw her in the, she has two lines in the whole film and she made me cry. I was like, that is a star. Like,
A star
baby
is born
Nessa,
right now.
you have my
You know
whole
what?
heart.
We
Like,
stand baby Nessa. I do not stand the other Nessa. Honestly, it's because she never stands up for her sister. All your sister does is stand up for you. You suck. I'm such a hater.
Speaking of bringing in the babies, a super powerful moment, which for me, I've had like dreams of like hugging my younger self or healing my younger self or whatever. And so something they didn't do on the stage show that I've ever seen is when Alfie is about to fly, she's falling, of course, and she sees her younger self also falling.
Oh,
And it,
that got me
yeah,
good.
just
That
that
got me good.
resounding like be there for yourself, like be there for little you or whatever, make your own self proud or be your own hero. That was an amazing addition, right? They don't do anything like that on stage.
Yeah,
And that
no,
was a
there's
really
no
poignant like
children in
moment where I was
Wicked.
like,
Yeah.
okay, iconic like choice here because it wasn't expected, but it was like perfect. So I love the little versions, the kids versions and the way that they use them throughout the
Yeah.
movie.
And something about that that was like, I guess, different from the stage performance is that when she singing Defying Gravity, she flies. But in this one, when she goes to fly, she initially falls. And they said that they kind of
Mm.
did that on purpose because, like, the whole time, all this time, she's been able to levitate everything higher than her. And she's always been standing still. And so now, like, literally, she's not defying gravity. And it takes her, like, finding herself, connecting with, like,
Hmm.
the person that she was and who she's going to be to then, catch the broom and fly off in her like big
Huh.
victorious thing. And I was like, well, that's like, and they kind of did it with how the music also works is like, how would you be singing this if you're flinging or being flung around on a broom? And so,
Yeah, she
yeah,
literally was
I,
though. If you saw
uh-huh.
the behind the scenes stuff, they put her in a rig and she's like singing this live. I'm like,
Wait, they
so
had her do her own
crazy
stunts?
vocal.
Yeah, and she wanted to.
Ugh.
Ariana Grande did too, because they were like, we
Yeah.
want to do them.
Jonathan did too. Yeah. Yeah, Jonathan did all of that as well. It's craziness. Yeah. And singing and all of that. And it's just like, yeah, really, really neat how I think what I liked a lot about this movie is that they gave a lot of these tender moments room to breathe. I think when you see it on stage, a lot of stuff gets kind of glossed over, rushed through because, it's one act or another act and you kind of have to get from one thing to the next. And I feel like sometimes those moments can get kind of glossed over, especially if you listen to the original Broadway cast album, you might be missing a lot of the story that's happening because the lines are not included. Like there's songs that aren't included here and there. Like there's things missing where you just aren't gonna get the full plot and the whole like the full story really. So I really like that this was like just a way to really give the story more room to breathe for people to kind of sit with
Yeah, let's say,
to hold
as
space
they would
with
Yeah.
the
say,
lyrics
holding space.
as I had to bring it up. Holding space with the lyrics, absolutely, I have been. Yep. Yep. Holding my finger.
Well, it's that I saw something about that, and people were like, "What does that even mean?" And it's a therapy thing. It's like that's something they tell you
Yeah.
to do in
Hmm.
therapy is to like this
Yes.
hold space, sit with
Okay.
that
Mhm.
feeling. And so
Yes.
that's what they
It was
meant, but it
so
was just so
awkward.
awkwardly worded,
Yeah.
and that people are like, "What are they talking about?" And of course,
Oh
and
my
then they
gosh.
reacted so emotionally, which and I get it. People have been like,
I would too, though. Like,
well, people have kind of been like driving them for how emotional they are, but
Huh.
like they have dreamt about being in this
yeah.
performance for so long, and they've already filmed everything, and they're really
Hmm.
really close, and so like I mean
Yeah.
I would also cry if people were like, oh, this like touched me in such a way and this has like helped me find
Yeah.
myself. I'd be like, oh my
Lifelong
God.
dream. Like
Yeah, like
self-actualizing on that level. Like, I don't know if you saw, but like there was a tweet that apparently Ariana posted 10 years ago, like yesterday, where she was like, just saw Wicked. I'd love to play Glinda someday. These are like like when somebody's dream comes true like that, like you can't not cry. Like I cry seeing other people's dreams. I cry when stuff like that happens in my own life. Like it's just like it's so precious
I
and
still
like
cry listening to Let It Go. Like, also, let's stop like critiquing women in particular for expressing emotion. Like, it's 2024.
yeah, having emotions, like let us have
it's also
emotions.
such a
Quit being weird.
theater thing where it's like you bond with your castmates on such a level. When the show is over, it's
Everyone
such a
cries.
cathartic. Everyone cries. Everyone
Everyone
cries.
cries the whole time.
Even if like the whole time,
Mhm.
like
You're
even
just
if
like a
you like
techie in the
had
back crying. Everybody's
right,
crying.
right. Like it's just such an emotional bond of an experience that like like once you're in it and then once you're out of it you're like, well, what do I do now? But like now they have this press tour and of course like people are asking them these questions and sometimes they're like really personal questions. Like I know recently Ariana's been asked, like I think this interview hasn't come out yet, but they're going to be asking her about the comments people are making about her body and stuff, and it's like very kind of triggering content and stuff like that, but also talking about her again history with the show and how much it means to her and things like that. And like, yeah, like I'd be emotional. Like, are you kidding me? Like, absolutely. Like,
I mean,
so
I was emotional.
yeah,
I'm not even in the movie. So
yeah,
like, come on.
right. Like, I cried watching the movie
Yep.
several times, and I'm just like, I'm here with y'all. Like, it's just, yeah.
Mhm. Brilliant. So yeah, we'll move into wrapping this up, but I mean, this is great insight. I mean, you're really offering some great just semiotic analysis on really what appeals to the world so much about this just triumphant musical by Stephen Schwartz. I mean, brilliant work, on other major projects as well, like Hunchback of Notre Dame is a personal favorite of
Mm,
mine, and I would
yeah.
love to see that adapted in this way, but
I'd be
I
Oh,
interested to
doubtful
that'd be
maybe.
well,
I
I'd
don't
cool.
be
know.
interested to see how they
Yeah.
navigate giving someone a hump without
Yes.
being
Oh,
without
yeah.
hurting people's feelings.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's
mean, they just got to
Mm.
get a
there's a
little,
disability conversation to
hmm
be had there too.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
Hmm.
so.
That's I feel like that's out of everything that keeps like, live actions and stuff, that is not one that I've heard come up, and I have a feeling that's why. They're like,
That's partly
ooh.
probably. And also
Because
like
like a
real
whole part of
money
the
people and things
movie,
like that.
that
Yeah.
too, like a whole part of the
Right.
movie
Yeah.
is like racism, ableism. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
I
Like
love the
Yeah,
music. I
very
weird,
mean,
delicate, but
yeah.
gorgeous, gorgeous score. Yeah.
like priests, people, whatever he
Yeah.
was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no.
Reckoning with religious
Ugh.
concept. Yes,
Yeah, I feel like
it's a
that'd be a
tough
hard one to
one.
touch. They'd be like, "Oh crap, how do we make
Mhm.
this not as
Yeah. How did they
offensive?"
do it the first time? That's my thought in general. I'm like, how did they? Yeah, but they
Well, they
somehow,
did
yeah.
at the time, like when Disney did like the cartoon. They weren't like they didn't
Uh,
care as much. It's kind of like with Pocahontas. They were like, "Oh yeah, throw it out
Oh
I
there,"
yeah.
and
know,
now they're
like,
like,
Oh
"Ooh,
boy.
It's also
uh-uh."
Schwartz,
Yeah, that
right?
is
no,
also Schwartz. Yeah, and also he did Prince of Egypt as
my
well, and that's
favorite,
another. Yeah,
iconic.
yeah.
I saw Prince of Egypt in the movie theater when I was a kid, and I was like,
Oh no
I
way.
did, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
I did. Those were the days.
Yeah,
Hey, I
he
mean,
just churns out those bangers. Like I love
yeah.
Enchanted. It's in my top five
I
films, and
want to
like
cosplay her so
yeah,
bad.
same.
The wigs
Yeah,
are so
literally.
expensive, but I
Like
want to cosplay her so bad.
like I've been in love with Stephen Schwartz's music for a while. Like Pippin is another favorite musical that he did, and I've auditioned for Wicked before, and I really want to continue to be seen for it again. Like so far and few routine when it comes to like soprano roles in musical theater. So I've put my name in the ring for Glinda on one or two occasions, and want to continue that hopefully someday. But yeah, it's just yeah, like gorgeous, gorgeous scores, and like I little thing that I noticed about the scores in this film is that they added some like instrumental stuff. Like I don't know if you listened to What Is This Feeling? There's like this like I don't even know what the instrument is, but this sort of electronic-y thing that's like happening in the background of that song and Dancing Through Life that I has never been a part of the score before, but I just was like such a cool addition, and it just like scratched my brain in such a particular way where I was like, oh, oh.
Well,
I think
yeah.
they also worked with the original orchestrator, Stephen Arimas was also a part of this. And also, fun fact, the ensemble voices that you hear, like it's doing like No One Mourns the Wicked, like What Is This Feeling? A lot of them are made up of Broadway former performers of Wicked, actually. So you have like, and not just Wicked, but also other musicals as well. So Cara Lindsay was in the ensemble. I want to say Ashley Brown was as well. Like a lot of like really well-known like Broadway people, and like they sound so good. Like yeah, so it just goes to show it's like yeah, really, really well done musically on all fronts, and
Plus,
yeah,
I liked the nods that they added, like at the beginning, where
yeah.
it was like the ding
Mm,
dong, the witch is dead, And then they had like the little ones where you heard the
Yes.
dun 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 dun, dun, and I was like,
Yeah, Mrs.
yes,
Gulch's
yes,
theme.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I love
Yeah, because
that.
I was like, all
Yes.
those little Easter eggs, I like live for. And I know some people are
Yeah.
like, oh, it's fan. Well, they're like, oh, fan service. And I'm like, no, give it to me. I want that. Yes. Or like,
This whole project is kind of fan servicey
yeah.
in a
I mean,
way, you
it's
know?
based on
So,
another
yeah.
movie. So, like,
Right, right. Yeah.
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 Well, everything, yeah, it connects so well with not only just the actual content of the musical, of the story, the book, the play, but also, yeah, the behind the scenes process of developing a musical like this. Yeah, I mean, even you look at the types of roles Idina Menzel. We had our a couple of episodes leading up to this one
Oh, yeah.
featuring Kristen Chenoweth. Just bubbly character. Her quintessential personality coming through as the Sugar Plum Fairy in Strange Magic, and then Idina Menzel as this very kind of cold, prickly, but also justifiably like
set
just
up
completely over with it. Yeah, a wife of a total
mess.
scumbag character. Yeah, and in Uncut Gems. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm ready to start wrapping up. So any final kind of comments from each of y'all, and then we'll say goodbye for now, and
Mhm.
reconvene, of
Next
course,
year.
for the yeah the final return to Oz, shall we
Mm.
say? Yeah, the final act.
Wicked for
Uh,
Good, I think is the
Hmm.
subtitle on there.
for
Yeah.
good.
I see what they did
Hmm.
there.
What a world.
Well, I, for one, I'm happy that we had a chance to go over this because it's been long overdue. I've been down the minutes until we could talk about it. So I'm happy we set aside this time to kind of revisit it all together. And I look forward to seeing it again. And I'm assuming anyone who's listening has probably already seen it. But if you haven't, please go and please see it on the big screen because it's one that can't be missed in my book. It's definitely in my like top 10 movies.
Bridget?
I meant to add this fun fact earlier. When we were talking about practical effects, the train is
Yes.
actually a train.
Yeah.
And it was 16,000 tons.
Whoa.
Cause it
Yeah.
was funny because when we were there, because Godfrey's an engineer and he's a huge nerd. And so he was like, if that train was real, it would be really, really heavy. And then I was listening to something earlier and they were like, no, they built that. That was a real train and it was really, really heavy. And I was like, wow, he was right. Uh,
So smart.
I know he's such a nerd. But overall, of course, it was everything I wanted it to be. I of course like again went into it like a little sus about Ariana Grande, but because she just mumbles when she sings, and I was really worried about that. But I heard that she did all this training,
Mhm.
opera training, and I mean she has the voice for it, so I was like, okay, I'm a little more comfortable knowing that she did some training, dropped the mumbling, and so it was just everything it could have been. And I guess what I was expecting, I was like, I guess this is like as close to a Broadway performance of this as I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna get in the near future. Um, but yeah, definitely I watched again. Again, I said 12 out of 10. And it was also 11-year-old approved. It was
Yes.
11-year-old approved.
Oh,
So
that's the biggest, the highest honor, really. Yeah.
yeah. If a
Oh,
preteen likes it, then you're
yeah.
golden.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, this story and also just the world of Oz in general has been just such like a part of my life for so long. Like when I was one of the first theater camps I ever did as a child was all about Oz, and we sang music from The Wizard of Oz, from Wicked, from The Wiz, and we acted out like the whole story, and I got to play a bunch of different characters. I was Dorothy in one scene, I was the Wicked Witch in another scene, and Mrs. Gulch, and it just was like just like it's one of those things that really just kind of lit the spark in me. And if I talk about it too much, I'm going to get emotional, but like
Yeah.
it just was one of those, like I'd just been waiting for this for such a long time. And I got to see it with my sister who also, loves this world as well. And like we just were just bonded over it so much, and we're just so like how lucky are we to get to experience this, and like that it's finally happened, and that everybody seems to be like on board with it. Like it's rare that all of the theater world kind of agrees on something, and like seeing like kind of like the flood of praise that was happening, like it didn't feel real. Like when I first, like of course there's things to critique about it, like nothing is like 100% perfect all the time, but like it just feels so like it felt so like complete to me. Ironically, for being one half of the show, like it just was like yes, like it just was like everything I wanted to see and so much more, and I could see it like 500 more times, and I don't even know how to rate it, at this. So it's yeah, I couldn't be happier. Which yeah.
Couldn't be happier.
You said that memory unlocked. I
Mm.
was Dorothy for Halloween when I was 5.
Oh
And
my
I don't
gosh.
know. That had like left my memory. But my
Yeah.
mom, she took like white Keds and glued red glitter to them
Oh,
so that I
that's so
had ruby red
sweet.
slippers. And then
Oh my
she
gosh.
made my dress because she was really into sewing at the time. But yeah, I like that was completely out of my brain because we obviously grew up with The Wizard of Oz. And so
Yes,
yeah, you
yeah.
said that you were like, oh yeah, we got to dress up. And I was like, wait a second. Like I'll have to see if I can find a picture of
Oh
it.
my gosh, that's
But
so
yeah, it's like
precious.
such a
Oh,
throwback.
Mhm.
yeah.
Nice. Well, okay, this film, yeah, comments on a lot of different things, and we'll hopefully see some of these explored a bit more in the sequel. But I don't know, any kind of gripes I had, I kind of got off the at the start of the show. Apologies for some of the technical issues we were having as well. A couple useless bits of trivia. Oz's full name is Oscar Zoroaster Frederick Isaac Norman Henkel Emmanuel Ambroise Diggs, which can be shortened to Oz Pinhead as the acronym. But yeah, he doesn't like the pinhead part, so
No.
yeah, just
Can't
refers to
imagine
himself as
why.
Oz.
Yeah, weird. Did you guys know that the goat teacher, I can't remember his
Yes.
name, was Peter
Dillman. Yeah.
Dinklage?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
yeah.
didn't
yeah,
know
yeah.
that.
And he was
I
good.
saw
I
him
was
on
like,
Hot Ones.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw him on Hot Ones, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I played a goat," and I was like,
Wait a
"What?"
second. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did because I didn't look up the cast, and he hasn't been on the press tours, so I
Yeah,
had
I
no
guess because
idea.
he was
But yeah,
CGI, but yeah, and it's funny because like something bad is like one of those songs that universally people are like, that's the one you skip on the Wicked album. Honestly, I
I like
really,
it.
really like how they did it in this one. I was like, oh, they got
Mhm.
more of the animals in there. Like they're really like going into the plot a lot more. I was like, I won't skip it this time. Like, okay. Like I see
I
it
will
was
accept
something
this.
bad. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Wizard of Oz entered the novel, the children's novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, originally published by L. Frank Baum in 1900, entered the public domain in 1956. But yeah, a lot of the various other works surrounding it have components or are entirely still within their original rights holders, like the 1939 MGM film. Laura, you said you went to a screening that was hosted by Amazon. They're current owners of MGM, so I imagine they
oh.
have all that original copyright, under their umbrella. But why were they hosting this screening? Do you know?
Part of the many brand deals happening with Wicked, I would assume. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, some kind
Because
of connection there. Yeah.
like if they wanted to use the ruby slippers in this film,
Hmm.
like that wouldn't be unprecedented. Disney did the same thing for their film
Oh, the
Return to
ride. And
Oz.
also they had the great movie ride that had the whole Oz section. Like so like they used to have a lot more Oz stuff, but
Well,
then
there would have been special
yeah.
clearance to use,
Hmm.
the various films for that ride. That was
Yeah.
its own kind of special thing. But I think it's rumored they paid quite a bit,
Hmm.
specifically for permission to use ruby slippers
Oh,
in the
sure.
80s film Return to Oz, which,
Hmm.
which was a Disney
Scary,
production.
scary film. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Oh, the
Whew.
80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of weird how all these things are wrapped up in various different entities, and it gets yeah. So like, while you could, I guess, buy rights to use things, it ends up getting kind of expensive and maybe not worthwhile. Or these co companies are just stubborn, obstinate, stupid business, boring business stuff that prevents the collaboration. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like Universal wanted to partner with
Hmm.
Amazon or something to
Oh,
make a movie
perhaps.
like this. Yeah, like I mean, I think the original Gladiator was a co-production between like Universal and Paramount.
Hmm.
This new one just had the Paramount logo in front of it, and then Ridley Scott's company. no Universal logo. So that would have been weird having two Universal films coming out on the same day.
No, yeah.
Uh, um, and then yeah, I think that's it. F fun stuff. It was too long in my opinion, especially for a part one. But I mean that's kind of a shallow critique. True though. But yeah, I mean maybe if I'm in the mood for it, I'll want to put this on and just kind of let it wash over me. Because I do really enjoy the music. I love, the works of Stephen Schwartz and um yeah, I strongly it's a strong recommend for me. But that does it, for our wickedly talented cast of Thoughtcasters on the Thoughtcast conversations about animation. Thank you, Adele. Thank you, Dazim. Thank you,
Elsa.
Mariana
Yes.
Grande. No, yes,
Adriana Venti.
yeah,
Yes,
Venti,
there we
Venti.
go.
There we
Adriana
go.
Venti.
Find the Thoughtcast, thoughtcast.com. At Thoughtcast on socials. You can find me at Philip Elke on socials. Any socials for you for stuff with Laura?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me today. Y'all can check me out on most things. My name is going to be just Lara Akal, Lariakal, but I also have a princess page, part of Lara's World on Instagram, where you can see more of my character performing stuff there. Yeah.
You can find me on Instaham. It's Bridget5246. That's Bridge with a T.
And I'm on a
5246.
hiatus. I think that's the right word, but like find me nowhere and find me never. Find me here. Find me here.
Dude,
Valid.
I think about
Yeah.
sending you stuff on Instagram sometimes,
Nah.
and I was like, she doesn't look at this.
But I will be here.
She doesn't look at it.
Oh, thank you, Jody. Yeah.
So if you care to find me, yes.
So thank you for listening to the Thoughtcast and Wicked. And what else? This has been a gloriously musical endeavor. Thank you all so much. And we'll be back with more podcast. I don't know, maybe Moana or something.
Oh, yeah.
And to all, enjoy your holiday season. Have a magical day. Have a wonderfully wicked week. And warm hugs.